The doctor sits you down and says, like, you have a racquetball-sized tumor in your colon.
Devastation. You hear the word, I can say cancer now. I used to not want to even say the word. Pure devastation. As a 5-year-old, I drowned. To this day, I can still see myself floating, feel the sensation of the water running through my sinuses. I could see myself floating. They pulled me out, pumped my stomach. Why would a guy walk away from his corporate job, president and CEO of an organization, to go find, what is that thing? I did it.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Ryan Snod. It Rhymes with Odd, and you're listening and watching the Rhymes with Odd podcast, where we talk all things business, entrepreneurship, and reaching success in life. Today we have Kirk Bjorland on the show. Kirk is the city administrator for the city of Granger, which is where this podcast studio is located. He's also a real estate business owner, entrepreneur, loves all the biohacking and other things, which we'll talk about, health. Yes. Kirk, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of fun stuff we can talk about. This might need to be a two-parter. We'll see how long this goes, but I met Kirk a couple months ago. We were kind of talking about all things city of Granger, and just in these conversations, really thought you'd be a good person to come on the show and kind of share your life story and all the fun stuff that you're up to. So
yeah, I'm glad to be here. I've kind of a life story to tell, and I feel that speaking with you and getting to know you, and this is an area that I haven't dove into, but I have an interest. Definitely in the podcasting and kind of that one-on-one interaction with your listener and getting information out.
Sure. Well, and I think, and we were kind of talking about this off air earlier, I think people really want that, from the horse's mouth experience, right, or the longer form stuff, especially with social media. That's all the 20-second clip or the hype reel. Like, people want to hear a deeper conversation, I think, and I think that's a great medium for this to happen. So
yeah, absolutely. And I spent a lot of time in the public eye, the majority of my career, 35 years in the public eye, and grew up as a young kid on a small farm. My family had horses, and I grew up this exciting kind of entrepreneur, spirited adventurer, and then you learn to put a suit on and act a certain way. So now I'm kind of life's journey is, how do I share that story that it doesn't always have to be just the suit, to be successful in business. And I think I spent a lot of years in that mold doing what I think probably people expected of me versus living, who I was. But we can get into that kind of later. But I feel like I have an interesting story to tell and make that interaction with the listener.
Sure. So before we hop in your backstory, I think if you can give me the 2 to 5 minute who is Kirk explanation, like who are you, what do you do, all the different work stuff you're doing in terms of like titles and roles and things like that, I think would be helpful before we jump into kind of your past. So I currently city administrator up in Granger, the city of Granger, located on the kind of the northwest side of the metro. Came up here in November of 2021. Kind of how I landed here. Stepped out of the corporate world around 2018. Cancer survivor who kind of woke up one day and the kids were. My son was about to graduate from Iowa State. My daughter was about a year and a half from graduating from Iowa. And woke up and thought, is this the role I should be playing? In an office building downtown, and had a strong sense that no, it wasn't. Kind of took a leap of faith and did some consulting for a while. Worked with a local large bank doing some consulting. Got back into the real estate industry. I've spent a lot of time doing development and economic development and building homes and things, but got licensed with my real estate company in 2020. And had been spending a lot of time looking up in this area to purchase land to get out of the city and maybe bring our horses up here that my family owns down south in southern Iowa. And came across an ad that the city of Granger was hiring an administrator for the first time. And that first time was what interested me. I graduated from college and became a city administrator in my own hometown, and they too had just implemented it for the first time. I was 23 years old in my own hometown, just hired a city administrator for the first time. Probably a lot of trial and error. Not probably. There was a lot of trial and error, a lot of error on my part. Knowing that Granger is growing and the metro is coming, I wanted to come up and be a part of a team to help put those pieces together and put the foundations in place. And so a lot of good things happening up in Granger. Have a lot of businesses coming, a lot of housing development opportunities. Good team up here, a small community that's bracing for growth. Have a really good council and mayor, good city staff and team in place, a lot of good volunteers. So we're excited. With that, I still own a real estate company. I don't do a lot of things personally with that. Some evening things, some weekend things, do a lot of referring and partnering with my colleagues. But with that, I done a lot of economic development, doing a lot of it now. Primarily, my days are filled with building relationships and talking to developers, working with the schools, working with engineers, meeting a lot of landowners around the area and local farmers and people who grew up. I think it's important for what happens within this community that heritage and that history is preserved. So I've spent a lot of time getting to know the community, getting to know those, the retiree groups, and spending time with them because I feel that there needs to be that base. Granger is a bedroom community. We are expanding. Our housing is growing. I think it's important to kind of maintain that retiree and that, what's the heritage from the community.
Sure. No, it's awesome to kind of see. I mean, I've been here for 2 years. We live in Polk City nearby, so it's kind of interesting to see all the buzz and everything. So yep. I'm sure that's keeping your phone ringing and busyness going on there. So let's kind of jump back to kind of your origin story. So you mentioned you grew up on a horse farm. Talk me through a little bit about your childhood, where you grew up, and what that was like for you.
Yeah, I'm originally from Lamoni, down in southern Iowa, a small university town, home of Graceland University. Grew up in town, grew up with a lot of close friends that we all went through preschool and elementary, high school, and then went off to college together. They're probably, well, on a scale of what the metro would be, not a lot, but, for a graduating high school class of 32, 20 of us probably went off to college together. And of that, coming out of a small rural community, 2,400 population, we had classmates end up doctors and attorneys and CEOs of aircraft companies, and a lot of good opportunity coming out of Lamoni. The interesting part is, as a youth, grew up the youngest of 3 boys when I was a youth, and I was chasing my 2 older brothers, doing whatever they did, and I don't know if I wasn't smart or just didn't have any fear, but adventure is what we did, and had a lot of fun, a lot of good times, raced a lot of motorcycles, rode horses, went hunting, shot guns, lived on the edge of town but lived out on a farm. From there, graduated high school, went off to the university. My dad worked at the university, and so a large group of us our parents worked at the school, and so we went off to the university, and going off to college is, even though you're right in your own hometown, we rarely ventured off campus. Met a lot of people from, we were 40-some states and 40-some countries, I think, represented there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and a lot of activity. Later on in life, I ended up vice president for enrollment out there. A lot of that population and coming from all parts of the world was driven by our programs and a rich heritage in the performing arts, in theater,
a lot of 22 varsity sports, 11 junior varsities, so a lot of activity and students coming from all over the world. But growing up in a small community and a small Christian community was, you looked up to your mentors. Your football coach was your superintendent.
And your history teacher, and your the bus driver.
Your Sunday school teacher was your second grade teacher, and happened to also be one of your friend's mom, and so
one of my clients is a small community just outside the metro. Same thing. It's like head football coach, the athletic director. Yeah. Pretty sure he's like a science teacher for the elementary school, and like on the board, it's like
absolutely
the whole entire thing is him.
Yeah. And at the time, you didn't feel like you were locked in living, a life that was, you were naive to what was happening in the world, because we were in a university town and we did have people from all over the world, and we did travel, not a ton, but we did travel. So it was a good experience.
Good. Do you wish you would have went to school outside of town and not been a townie, or is that something that you still feel like a good decision for you?
I've been blessed with a ton of opportunity. I've been blessed, period, from a family and health wise. My kids, that's how I ended up in the metro. So I mentioned that later on in life, I was vice president for enrollment for the university. So I kind of a recap of, how do I go from the Moni to end up here? So I graduated from the university, left, moved to Kansas City, lived in Arizona for a while, lived in California for a while. My mom lives out there. And you leave college and think you're going to go tame the world. And pretty soon reality sinks in that you can only eat Kraft macaroni and cheese, rice, and hot dogs. Pretty soon you got to put a plan in place. So after probably 9 months, moved back home and was preparing to go to grad school. And a couple of my past professors came to me and said, hey, we have a city clerk position open, and we're thinking about that becoming a city administrator, and we'd like you to apply. Long story short, I ended up applying and received it. Now, 23 years old, not a lot of experience, a good work ethic, but not a lot of business experience. But, I've always been intrigued by management and marketing and relationships. And so I spent 7 years with the city of Lamoni, doing a lot of economic development, spending a lot of time working with a lot of attorneys out of the Des Moines area who were teaching us how to put these tools in place to do urban renewal, urban revitalization, and those things. So spent 7 years with the city. And then around 1997, the bank came calling. We were Liberty Bank and Trust, owned by the Bill Krause family here in Des Moines. They came calling and had an opening for a commercial lender and a manager of the local branch. And so in 97, I joined the bank and spent 11 years there. A lot of success, great team, a lot of strong relationships built in that time, and a lot of fun banking. We went through 2 mergers, which was interesting. You get in each time our bank got bigger. And then around 2007, late 2007 or so, a new president came to town who used to be one of my business professors. And he and I were talking one day, and he said, I wouldn't mind you joining us at some point at the university, and kind of make a funny story and good timing. We got into the middle of 2008, around June-ish, May, June, and I called him and he said, I think I'm ready. Well, then we know what happened in the middle of 2008. The economy crashed, and I didn't have any inside information. I was kind of getting burnt out on the banking regulatory side. And
you got out at like the perfect time then?
I did. I did. And another kind of antidote to that is in November of 2007, my family was in the construction business, and so for a while I was purchasing land, subdividing it, dividing up the lots, putting in the utilities, and I owned backhoes and dump trucks and skid loaders and trenchers. We'd put in the utilities, and then my family or others would build. My brother was a contractor and built homes. And so we were doing that. Well, in November of 2007, my kids were getting to the age that, we were traveling with sports in season, with travel teams out of season, and I just had this feeling I should get out of this. Went to the homeowner that we were building their home at the time, and I said, you give me X amount of dollars and I'll sell it to you. We'll finish it for material and labor. And then I divested. I sold all my heavy equipment, got out of it, and then 2008 hit. So at that time, I looked pretty good. It was the luck of the draw.
Sure.
And jumped out. And then I, to continue the story of how we ended up here, so then I joined Grayson University in 2008, eventually became vice president for enrollment, oversaw recruiting, athletics, financial aid, government relations, all of athletics. And my children, and then their mom worked out there also. And so my kids, in traveling to events and going on vacations, they heard all the inside information. So who was Dad talking to? What conversations was he having with coaches? What conversations was he having with, financial aid and the recruiters and the athletic director? So when I got time for my kids to go to college and get free tuition, no, Dad, we're not going. It's like,
the hell you're not.
Yeah, that's what their mom and I wanted to say. But they said, Dad, it's like church camp. And mind you, my kids had gone to church camp a lot, and we didn't fight it. Now, there's a little bit of a caveat to it, is that Bo and one of his friends, Daniel, went to the Iowa State, Oklahoma State football game in 2011 when Iowa State beat Oklahoma State. And those two, I think Bo was 15 at the time, Daniel was 16. And we let Daniel take my truck, and Bo and Daniel came up to the game. Well, they were there when the students rushed the field. And that pretty much sealed the deal that those two were going to Iowa State. So Bo went off the fall of 14 off to Iowa State. His sister Bailey, who's 2 years younger, really close with her brother and his friends. And mind you, it was small. Her class, I think, might have been 16. That winter of 2014, those two cooked up a plan for us to move and talked me into it. And from there, applied for some positions, talked to some people that I knew in contacts, and had a great opportunity. Came up, worked for the state of Iowa and the Iowa Innovation Corporation as president and CEO. A wonderful organization taking new technology to market, finding state money, federal money, venture capital, mentors, a lot of things out of Iowa State, a lot of innovation. And then we would match, federal grants, state grants, mentors. How do you scale this, and how do you put it together? That's where I held the position up until 2018, and I don't know what maybe what was inside of me driving that. I'm a 2009, 2010 cancer survivor. Had colon cancer and a racquetball-sized mass and 10 inches of my colon and 25 lymph nodes removed and 6 months of chemo. That was pretty hard. Woke up one day just with this internal burn that this is not what you're supposed to be doing. And
when you felt that, was there like, I'm assuming you have a good job, you have a good salary. It's like you're already positioned where you need to be. Like when those thoughts come to your mind, what's the first thought? Is it like, No, like it's kind of like the devil on your shoulder. Like, no, we're not going to do that. Or what kind of even prompted you to consider changing it up?
I ignored it. I ignored it for a long time. I did. Had a wonderful job, wonderful organization, working with Debbie Durham in the state of Iowa, and wonderful leadership. I loved the board I worked for and worked with, and lived in Grimes on the east side of 141 in a new home, and kids were off to college, and things were great. But internally was this burning push to do something else, and not to, I'll give kind of a quick, where does this internal voice come from? There's a part of my life that a lot of people don't know, and I probably don't tell the story enough, but as a 5-year-old, I drowned. Hit my head on the bottom of the pool, dove in. To this day, I can still see myself floating, feel the sensation of the water running through my sinuses. I could see myself floating. They pulled me out, pumped my stomach, took me to the hospital, and I ended up fine. With that, there comes kind of the strong Christian faith I got ran over by a tractor and fell forward while my oldest brother was driving it in road gear going down a dirt road, hit a bump. I fell forward, tractor ran over my back. I stood up, had a tire mark across my back, had a cut in my chin, 7 years old, totally fine. Shaken up, crying, but fine.
Are you part cat? Do you have nine lives?
That's where I'm heading. Kind of to preface, maybe why we're here and having this conversation. A couple years later, I'm on my horse. Now, mind you, we lived out on the edge of town in the country. It was nothing to go out, and I had a horse named Duke, and I would just get on him and ride him, and slipped a bridle on him and threw the saddle on him. He and I went out and rode down the road, and we're down in the ditch, and a gravel truck is coming down the road. And as the truck's coming, he starts scampering, and he's scampering out in the middle of the road sideways. And the dump truck got stopped in time, hit us, but just kind of launched us a couple feet. And then, knowing I'm in trouble, we sprinted all the way, probably half mile back to the house. Driver called my dad, said, I have no idea how I got stopped. I was fully loaded. Is your son okay? And, I was worried that I was in trouble. Another, why'd that happen? Don't know. Then, I raced motocross. We grew up on motorcycles. I was always kind of a daredevil. Down below our pasture was a hayfield with no fences, and I was down there playing one early evening, and I was jumping the road, and I came out of the hayfield, probably going about 45 miles an hour, pulled the front end up to jump the road, and I T-boned our neighbor. Don't remember much about that. I remember her saying, you'll be okay, Kirk. We'll be at the doctor's office soon. And then when I got to the doctor's office in Lamoni, they put me in an ambulance and took me off to Des Moines. During that time, I was praying and doing quite a few things out loud. Woke up the next morning, my dad's asleep in the chair next to me, and I have these monitors all over me, and I start tapping them and watching the monitor move. And the nurses come in, and I'm fine, not a scratch on me. And then in junior high, I asked for a ride home from a friend, and on the way out of town, he followed the competitive school's bus, and he went to pass he went to pass a friend, and the friend wouldn't let him pass, and so we're drag racing down East Main Street. Another car's coming, and at 70 miles an hour, we turn sharply, car goes into a skid, rolls 5 times, throws 2 of us out. Car rolled over the top of me, broke my arm, and that was it. So that kind of packages maybe why am I going out on a limb. Now, during college, I had a good friend that I worked with who said, that's all just coincidence. you be the judge of this coincidence.
Maybe once, maybe twice, but
then I had
5-6 times.
Then I had cancer. So why would a guy who's in his 40s, I was 50. Guy's 50 years old, raising 2 kids on his own, not on my own, but my wife and I, weren't together, hadn't been for probably 15, 16 years. But why would a guy walk away from his corporate job, president and CEO of an organization, to go find, what is that thing? I did it. I felt the burn and the desire inside was more than sitting with that safety net. I walked.
Did you ever, in those traumatic experiences, have like a sensation right before the danger was coming that you noticed it, or was it just kind of like things just happened and then you just woke up and you were alive still?
I grew up with a strong faith. For whatever, my parents we went to church, we went to Zion's League. I had some real influential leaders. I had a first grade teacher who was more than a teacher to me, who, her and her husband were mentors for me. And for whatever reason, that it just growing up in that small town, I just had this sense of faith. Probably really didn't realize it, and also probably don't always live it. But I feel that there is a story to tell. Probably getting a little deeper than where we wanted to go in this conversation, but during cancer, and it was this time of year in 2009. It was mid-November. Might have been late October, mid-November. Wasn't feeling well. My sister-in-law's a doctor, and she said, "Hey, I'm tired of listening to you. You need to go get checked out." Anyway, they found the racquetball-sized mass. So we go through end of December, or beginning of December. I have surgery. Chemo starts after Christmas. One night, kids are at their mom's. I'm laying at home in bed and just in dire straits. Chemo is taking its toll. I lost 50, 60 pounds. Laying in bed, and I cried out, God save me. God help me. I had been doing what you probably shouldn't do, which I know you shouldn't. I was opening my children's Bible at night, reading different text, and I'd read something. Yep, I'm gonna be okay. Yep, I'm gonna be okay. One night, I had done that probably 4 times. Every text I read didn't make sense, and I cried out, God, I don't want to die. As I'm closing the page, up on the inside rim of the Bible, on that topic of that page, it said, "Tell others God saved you." From that moment on, I'd like to say I didn't have any worries about dying, but I had this sense of calm. I'm going to be okay. You could preface that and say, yeah, you're making that up. But why did I not drown? Why did I not get smashed by the tractor? Why did the dump truck get stopped? Why did I live when I hit a car going 45? Why did I live when I got thrown out of the car going 70? When that burning voice, and I'm not telling people go quit your job. You got 2 kids in college, you're a president CEO of an organization. I'm not telling you to go quit your job, but I'm telling you to listen to that, to that voice. And I think as we talk, that'll get into our, kind of our deeper conversation, because, it's been an awakening leaving a small community where you had, that sense of trust and believing in what you hear is true. Now we're living in the society of social media and just information everywhere. And so it's been a journey for me. It's how did I end up at Granger? I felt a deeper sense and purpose that I needed them as badly as they needed me. It was kind of like going home. Hey, I've done this before. I've made a lot of mistakes in my, my home community. Thank goodness I was surrounded by people who knew me and mentored me. Had lot of great opportunity from, city government and development and banking and the university to come up here. But, bringing this back to how did I arrive, all of that I felt brought me to this time, coming to Granger, and great opportunity, part of a team putting the pieces together for growth. But I also I think I have a story to tell, on life and health and, your faith. It's been a journey.
Sure. No, it sounds like it. I mean, especially for somebody that you feel like some of these things are really like these turning points that, okay, like you said, you're looking through the Bible and then you see this and you feel like that's a sign for you. At that point, what was kind of the turning point for you? Was it just this calm that you kind of like accepted the pain, the temporary pain you were in at that time bodily, or what was the turning point for you at that?
I don't know that I can say, I don't want to sit here and say I have the answers because I don't. It's a journey. I can say, looking back, I had another instance. I mentioned, a first grade teacher who had been a mentor of mine. She was preaching one day in church, right in the middle, and this is in the early 2000s. Kids were still pretty young. She stopped her sermon and looked right at me and said, "Kirk, stop running." I'm like, what? And if you knew this person, it wouldn't have been odd. I mean, she was a very spiritual, great person, and she and I had a fantastic relationship. Right in the middle of her sermon, probably 60, 70 people in the church at the time, looked right at me and said, "Stop running." So you put all the pieces together and, do I have the answers and have I listened? Not always. But there are these, when I look back, that stop running merged together with tell others God saved you, and then all those things that have happened. It's like, okay, slow down and listen. And I think that's the piece that people need to hear. Slow down. Take care of yourself. We have one life to live, and take care of your friends and your family. And I'm up here in Granger because of relationships. I want that community one-on-one feel. Now, at times, it gets overwhelming. I mean, you're building relationships and demand and taking care of a community that's experiencing growth and pressure. But that relationship-based is kind of where I'm coming from. And, I don't know that there was a turning point because I'm still learning, still growing, still trying to probably stop running. But I think people, if they will slow down enough to look, they'll see patterns in their life that are guiding them. And they know the answer if they would just listen.
Do you still partake in dangerous activities for recreation, or have you kind of sworn that off now that you've almost exhausted all 9 of your lives that you have?
Most, yes. In the early, my brother and I both used to own cafe racer motorcycles. Used to do some pretty crazy things on them. Got on motocross. Actually, when my son was born, I raced the season of '96. And then, young family, new son. It was dangerous, and I hung it up. And then I hung up the motorcycle riding. I've owned several since, several Harleys, and I just can't risk not being here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you think other than family and stuff like that, was there kind of this other, you mentioned the purpose and the not being here for other people or for other reasons? What are some of those reasons that have changed now since when you were young?
I think kind of the guiding light for me is to share my story, and not to push or to prod or to take someone a direction. I don't want to tell anybody the direction they should go, but I think they should live the life they were meant to live. Now, that's a loaded statement because how do you find that? I don't know that. I mean, I think it takes journaling. I think it takes work. I think you have to listen. But we're especially now with social media, you're trying to live up to what you're seeing, and you're trying to feel good, and it's a challenge. I'm a, not to get off on a tangent, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm all about making money, but our food supply is bad. It is about making money. It is about, it's processed food. It's about packaging and marketing and feel good. I kind of have an internal saying that I say to myself: the further it gets away from God, the less food it is. When I was a banker, I'm all about feed your cattle, feed them this, let's get Roundup Ready beans and let's plant them closer together and narrow the rows, and it's all about making money. But now I look back and say, okay, I kind of had a hand in that, as you're lending to your ag customers, how do you get more daily rate of gain? How do you grow the crops faster? Well, some of the methods that we use to grow livestock and to grow crops is not necessarily healthy. Now, I would lean more towards I believe in our cattle growing, but there are things that we may be doing and injecting. A chicken lifespan, out in the natural world is a lot longer than we bring a chick to next thing you know, it's in the processing plant at, I don't know, weeks. So I think we have a lot to. I think society has a strong battle with our nutrition, and that for me, that all kind of works together on my journey because I want to live, and faced with the cancer and it's been a unique challenge for me. I will say probably a lot self-inflicted, just living how I think I can versus how I should.
Sure. No, I think that's a great point. I know we've kind of danced around the cancer story a little bit, so I think it'd be helpful for myself and for everyone listening to hear a little bit about kind of where you were in life right before you got diagnosed and what the journey was to figure out that you had cancer.
Yeah, so kind of a unique, maybe a blessing in disguise. So I found out in probably 2014 that I'm celiac, so I don't do well with gluten. So back up to, in the 2000s, I'd been to the doctor several times, done some heart tests and treadmill work, and just not feeling well.
How old were you at this point? Were you in your 40s?
I was 42 when I was diagnosed with colon cancer.
Okay.
But even in my late 30s, I was told that the cancer had been growing. They estimated 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So diet played a role in that. Worked out my entire life since I was 18. Kind of addicted to it, but did take a lot of probably bad protein powder. I mean, I remember buying this muscle milk stuff that just bound my stomach up, but I didn't have any guidance and probably didn't listen or do enough research, but
it probably had gluten in it too.
Well, it did. Everything I ate.
Yeah.
It did. After having cancer, we also owned bought from my brother-in-law and his family, the pizza shack. So not knowing I was celiac, after beating cancer, we owned a pizza business. So anyway, why the celiac mattered is we think that might have been what was causing me to identify not feeling well. So just not, some stomach issues, tired, kind of some upper anxiety, chest pressure, and called my sister-in-law one morning. I was a director of marketing out at the university. called my sister-in-law one morning from the football parking lot, getting ready to walk into the office. And I said, I just don't feel good. And she said, I'm tired of hearing about this. Called one of her friends up here in Des Moines who was an internist, internist doctor, internal med doctor, and came up and she drew my blood. And I had been picking up hay the weekend before I came up, and I had an abdominal kind of pain. And she drew my blood, came back relatively quickly. They must have processed it right there, because she came back and said, you're anemic. And I said, I have a spot, here that's, I felt like I pulled a muscle. And she put her finger on it and just about sent me through the roof.
Oh, just so much pain you couldn't even.
Yeah, and just on the right side of my upper abdomen, and from there it was, fortunately, my ex-wife had some health things she had gone through, and had a doctor that she had been seeing for internal, for stomach and things, and so I knew of her and knew her doctor, and so they immediately got me in, did a colonoscopy, found a racquetball-sized mass.
At that point, when you got that MRI back and they're talking to you, like, what's your first, the doctor sits you down and says, like, you have a racquetball-sized tumor in your colon.
Devastation. You hear the word, I can say cancer now. I used to not want to even say the word. Pure devastation. You're looking at two kids. They were probably fifth grade and seventh grade, and you're looking at two kids who are your whole world. And I had a great life. Their mom and I were raising them together, and although we weren't together, we were good friends, and kind of setting the example how two parents should co-parent and get along, and devastating. Now I did the man thing, tried not to show it, except to family, to close family, but those times alone, and for any listeners who are going through that, I cried out. It was, if you watched that, how I acted in private, it would probably crush somebody, but it's normal. And, it built my faith at the time, but it was, hearing I have cancer, it was devastating. Now, then I kind of was fast tracking through the Mercy system. That's where my sister-in-law worked. And thankful for her, the doctors who I was referred to wanted to do laparoscopic and just go in, and because I would be in the hospital a day or two less. But it was weeks before I could get in. And so I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I've got a racquetball-sized tumor in me, and our medical system is so busy that I can't get in for over 3 weeks. Now, this is where the blessings come in. Then I have a friend, happened to be my brother-in-law. His family was very well engaged with Methodist and Stoddard Cancer Center, and his mom had passed away, and his sisters and family were heavily involved, and his sister was on the board, and they asked to, would I like a second opinion? And fortunately, I talked to one of the head surgeons and the director of Stoddard Cancer, and this was on a Thursday night. I was at a Graceland basketball game, and he called me, and I said, I just want it out. He said, well, you're young enough. I don't want to do it laparoscopically. I want to open you up and see what's there. And he said, I'll take anything that is there. So I had this sense of peace. He said, when can you come? And I said, soon. This is on a Thursday. He said, be in my office Monday morning, and we'll operate Tuesday or 7th or 8th of December in 2009. And they did. So they took the racquetball-sized mass, 10 inches on my colon, 25 lymph nodes. 2 of the lymph nodes were hot. They had cancer in them.
So they just opened you up and started taking things out and being like, shaking around. Does this have cancer? Throw it out. Like
however they do that. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, they opened me up and kind of there's just a story within a story. And, I go through surgery early in the morning and my family's there and I can't handle the morphine I'm on is making me sick, and the nausea medicine they're giving me I'm allergic to, and I just had a rough, kind of slept the first couple hours, but then I get in the evening and I'm sick from the nausea of the morphine and I'm not doing well. I'm allergic to this other medication that's to take the allergic reaction away or the itching away, because I was itching myself. And probably 3 or 4 in the morning, they come in and administered a new medicine to me to stop the itching, because when I would fall asleep, my chest was raw. And mind you, we're not even 12 hours out of surgery yet. And they gave me something else, and as soon as they put it in my IV, right down the middle of my head, one side of my body just went numb. And I said, whatever that was, I'm allergic to it. Well, I didn't know what I was saying, but that's what I said. I'm allergic to that. And a nurse ran out and then ran back in, and right in front of me said, it's irreversible. Well, I'm a colorful guy, said some colorful things. And at that point, I said, I'm done. Not taking any. The only answer to this is I can't take any more morphine. I can't take any more pain meds. I'm done. And I'm barely 12 hours out. Well, they called my surgeon and my oncologist in. Both of them came in 6:30 in the morning and made everybody leave and talked to me and said, okay, can you do this? We'll take the edge off. And so I went off morphine, within 12 hours and not about being tough. It was about I was so sick. I said, I'm done. I can't. And so I took some pills, slept sitting in a chair quite a bit, sitting in a chair backwards because my abdominal area was pretty sore. And, just with that, a lot of faith-based things were happening. Things that I need to remember when life is good. And it's not that, let me go run to my faith when I'm in trouble, when I'm in need. Things I probably and do need to remember now. But it was 5 days in the hospital, and then once I got out, it was recovery, and then started chemo. The first of the year, 1st of January.
I'm assuming the surgeons wanted you to be on a bunch of extra medications. What was that like? Them kind of gearing you up for, hey, the next week if you go off all these meds, like you're going to be in excruciating pain. It's going to be very uncomfortable. Like, what was that like for you mentally as you prepared? It got to the point where it hurt and it couldn't hurt anymore. And I took some Tylenol codeine, every couple hours to just and it took the edge off. But I never took morphine again. God bless those people who can take it and handle it. I'm someone who can't, and not being on it was easier on me than being on it. And then I went home with, I didn't go home with much. I'm someone who can't take the narcotic very well. And so it was several weeks of healing and kind of getting better and actually almost a month, and then chemo started. And that's, again, God bless people who go through that. That is a journey of its own. Every 2 weeks, I would go for a treatment, and some odd stories there. If you get sick while you're in the hospital, you got to stay. The first time I went, I did get sick. The second time I went, bless my ex-wife, she took me up in my new pickup, and we get down the road to probably about Jordan Creek and Mills Civic, heading down back to Lamoni, and I got sick. And there was nothing in the truck to hold it. So you redecorated the interior.
I did, and bless her, she volunteered to take me up that day. But every time thereafter, it was kind of a joke. We had an orange Home Depot bucket in the vehicle, because if I got sick in the hospital, I had to stay the night.
And so the trick was I would be on chemo for 3 hours. They would unhook, and there was a routine. I had to take some anti-nausea things when I first got there. Then I'd be 3 hours on chemo, and then they would unhook that. I would go up a floor and get a 24 or 48 hour full fox or something, another pump in a bag that I had to have for 2 days. But the goal was whoever was with me, when I got the chemo off, they would go get the car, meet me at the front door. I'd go up and get the new pump for the additional chemo for the next 2 days, and then the nurses would rush me downstairs, get me out of the hospital before I got sick. So the orange Home Depot bucket has some meaning for me.
Sure.
It traveled with us. So a lot of experiences, not all bad, a lot of growing, a lot of, memories with that. Probably a lot of, not to monopolize the conversation with just me talking, but I have several close friends who are military and who have PTSD. And I've had long conversations in the gym, in the locker room, sitting in the sauna. And one of my friends one day who suffers from it, and he's a bad guy. He's a bad dude. He did some bad things, what was asked of him, representing our country. He looked at me one day in the sauna, and it was just he and I in there. And he said, if you don't have he said, who are you fooling? You probably have PTSD worse than anybody. And I said, what do you, I don't either. He said, look at the things. He said, what you cancer survivors go through isn't any different. I mean, it's on your mind every day. Am I going to live? Am I going to die? Am I going to live? Am I going to die? So what do you think it's like us who have been in battle? It's that same thing. You worry about your kids, your family. And so it's been being up here since 2015, it's a journey. It's a journey every day. I don't think I have anything special other than maybe a story to tell for others. But it was shaped my life, and still kind of on that journey, on that health journey.
Well, and you talk about the other kind of the things that happened that almost killed you through your life, like all these,
Right.
near misses, if you will. If your life was an OSHA calendar, you'd be like days since a near miss, like zero, like all the time.
Yeah.
How did this shape your mindset or your journey differently than all those other ones? Because the other ones, it seems like it happened and then you just moved right on. Like this seems like it really shook you and changed kind of your path and your trajectory.
It has a couple things. I think men and women, at times, the "I got this" mentality isn't healthy. Oftentimes we say, "I've got this. I can do this," and that's not a bad mantra to have. But it doesn't have to be the only way. I mean, there are a lot of key events that kind of speak to me. That passage at the top of the Bible that tell others God saved you, that speaks volumes to me. I should be representing that better than I do. The stop running, that's a whole part of I got this. I'm okay. I don't need to do that. I don't need to tell my story. I'm okay. I'm just going to do my thing. I don't know that's healthy. I think I do have a story to tell. Sitting in church at Lutheran Church of Hope, and Pastor Mike, Pastor Jeremy, preaching about, step out of the boat. Yeah, step out of the boat. Tell your story. Get involved. And it's when I look back and think of those things now, I guess I'm so free to share this story because I'm not good at sharing it. Why am I here? Why am I willing to share that story? I want other people to know it's not easy. I don't have the answers. I'm not the expert. Have I done a lot of things wrong? 100%. Still doing them wrong every day. But it's a journey, and I want others to know that
it is a journey. It's not easy. It's not fun to walk. Others have walked it. I've walked it. Love to help and talk to anybody who needs it. I think at times you look at people and you say, oh, they've got it made. I'm not one of those guys. I don't have it made. Every day is kind of a journey. And I, you and I have talked, kind of about those silly things that I do health-wise. I'm turning into, when I was in college, I had friends that we called tree huggers. And I don't mean that bad. And some of them, if they hear this, they're going to laugh. But when we were in college, we had friends who we were tree huggers. And not a negative term, but I'm that person now. I'll walk outside and ground in my bare feet. Read the studies on the information of what the earth provides and what it does to your body. We sit in the sauna every night, 179 degrees, 30 minutes, and read the studies of, what your all-cause mortality improvement in your life. If you do that at least 20 minutes a night up to 4 times, there's like a 40-some% improvement in all-cause mortality.
You've become a hippie. Congratulations.
I have.
We'll have to get you the little sunglasses and some braids or something.
And embracing the cold plunge. I did that religiously for a year. I don't know that I missed more than a handful of days. I went to California to see my mom and probably missed 3 days, but at least stood in a cold shower, as cold as it would get. But I to this day, I'm doing the cold plunge, and 48 degrees. I get in it from minimum of 3 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes. Improves my mood. There's a dopamine rush in there that lasts 2 to 3 hours. Do some deep breathing to fill my mind full of oxygen. I feel like I feel like at times I'm playing golf, and I don't know if I'm dragging my partner or my partner's dragging me, but I'm dragging along through life, making all kinds of mistakes, and I feel like I want to share that story. What's the journey? What's the journey been like?
This episode is sponsored by Jacobson & Company, LLP, a CPA firm based in the Des Moines metro area. We actually had Grant, one of their partners, on the podcast as a guest, and they were gracious enough to sponsor today's show. Grant and his team are my personal accountants that help both my wife and I with our accounting, tax prep, and business planning for both of our businesses and for our family. And we brag on them often and have sent a ton of people their way over the years, which makes this ad really easy to endorse since I've had them on retainer for a couple of years now. Their team is always keeping me up to date on the latest litigation changes, tax law changes, and other things that I have no time and frankly, no interest in keeping up with all by myself. The year before I started working with Grant, I think my tax bill was over $30,000, and I had like 2 months to come up with that money. I was not sleeping. I was working myself ragged, trying to come up with the cash so the IRS didn't come after me. That's when I realized I needed a great CPA to keep me out of the hot water. After meeting with him and making some changes, I got a $10,000 refund the following year just by getting educated on how taxes work and leaning into their knowledge base. A good CPA is an invaluable resource for any small business out there. They offer everything from QuickBooks management all the way up to fractional CFO type services, depending on how big your business is. And their staff is really responsive and answer any and all stupid questions that I have every single month. Supporting the sponsors that support this show allows this podcast to continue to be free for you and that you can enjoy each and every week. If you're needing a new CPA for your personal tax prep, or you're growing a business and need a well-versed accountant in your corner, make sure to check them out at jacobsoncpa.net and tell them that you came from the Rhymes with Odd podcast. Now, let's get back to the conversation. Sure. No, I love it. We'll talk about your biohacking in a second. I wanted to take a break and we'll do our lightning round. Okay. So we'll give you a break from all the fun stories here. These are random questions you don't know you might know the answers to, but we'll just throw them out there and see if you know. Okay.
Yep.
So number one, as the city administrator of Granger, what is the population of Granger based on 2020 census data?
Here, I'll preface this. We normally say our growth, because when they did the last census during COVID, it wasn't very accurate. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it's 1674.
It is, yep.
Yeah. We like to say we're around 2,000, but we've been averaging 50, 60, 70, anywhere from 50 to 70 building permits a year. We're probably going to blow that out of the water soon.
And that would be like households, so that could be 4 people in a house, or 2, or 1, or 10, or whatever.
What is that number? 2.3, 2.7, or 2.7 per household.
Sure, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right on the money. That's pretty good.
Yep.
What's the population of Iowa?
Yeah, I don't know that.
More than the number you just said, because
Yes.
there's 4 people. 3.2 million.
Yeah.
I always say 4 million though, and people are like, "It's 3." I'm like, "Okay, it's 4 years ago."
Yeah.
More people have moved here since then.
Yeah.
Who is the wealthiest Iowan? Highest net worth individual that lives in the state?
Garst?
No.
Harry Stein.
Harry Stein.
Yeah, Stein.
Yep.
Yeah.
9.3 billion is his net worth
Yeah.
estimated.
That's why I said Garst, as I knew it was a seed. Yeah, it was Harry Stein.
Yep. What are 6 acceptable condiments that you can put on a hot dog?
Ketchup, mustard, relish, horseradish, onions, jalapenos.
Okay, there you go. That's good. I would say chili. That's like the
There you
one.
go. That's true.
When I was a middle schooler, it would have been ranch. Like you
Yeah.
put a ranch on everything.
Yeah.
And then the last question, you being in economic development, do you know the new name for the Wells Fargo Arena that just got the licensing traded off?
Casey's.
Yep. It's the Casey's Center, I think.
Yeah.
We'll see
Yeah.
if they put a pizza box on the roof or something crazy. Their marketing team will have a field day with that one. So
Yep.
we'll get that. That at least lightens the mood a little bit here. You did pretty well though, I would say.
Yeah.
You like 3 out of 4. I think,
Yeah,
so.
I didn't know I didn't want to guess on the population of Iowa. I don't know. That's just something it's never stuck in my mind.
Well, and I want to say greater Des Moines metro area, there's almost I always say almost 1 million people between Des Moines, Ankeny, West Des Moines, Altoona, everything within a 50-mile radius. But again, people are like, no, it's like 500,000. I'm like, okay, whatever. So it's for round numbers. I call it 1 million people, but it's probably less than that. Okay, so kind of bringing it back in here. I know we've kind of danced around your health journey, but walk me through your process when you first started getting into these, I would call them alternative health practices, the grounding, the sauna, the cold plunge. Was it after your cancer diagnosis and you wanted to kind of clean your health up? What kind of got you on fire about practicing these things daily?
Not being able to manage my health. So I had around 2018, I had asthma when I was a kid that went away when I was probably around 5. And so it's like, okay, did it go away or was it something else causing it?
It might have been the motorcycle accident or the getting hit by a dump truck.
Who knows?
Drowning.
But in 2018, it came back.
Okay.
And chemicals, I used to love candles and almost can't handle them now. Anything with that strong aroma bothers me. And not from it just irritates me. You hear a little bit of raspiness in my voice now is that, we got out some Halloween and fall decorations and pumpkin spice candles. Can't take it. Sends me kind of into wheezing. So 100% believe in the medical field. Don't want this to sound like I don't. But they're also pretty good at prescribing prescriptions. And
you have a problem, here's a script.
Yeah.
Take a pill.
And wonderful doctor, that's what continued to occur with me. So we were chasing asthma in 2018 and all these things that had happened. I found out I was celiac. And in reading labels, first time I ever read a label, I'm a guy. I don't, feed me some pizza and chocolate milk and I'm happy. And and then I was told after I had cancer I shouldn't be eating so much meat. And so I ate a lot of lunch meat and but as I've aged, that lunch meat's processed, and the chemicals that are in it that allow it to last on the shelf. And so I started looking into those things the Instagram and TikTok are a wonderful source of, and I'll say the term Googling, but a wonderful source of search. And you got to be careful who you listen to, but you can get a lot of information in a 3-minute snippet. And then if you get something that you're intrigued by, you can go do further deep dive. Started doing a deep dive into our food, and being celiac and trying not to have gluten. Just because it's gluten-free doesn't mean it's healthy. It's probably more processed, and about 3 times as expensive as when I eat bread, it's $8 for something that's probably 8 by 4. It just doesn't make sense to me. So, I started looking at different foods and the processing, and it just kept, I just keep kind of transitioning down that line of seed oils are not good for you, and a lot of the stuff that we're eating is petroleum. I mean, it's almost petroleum based. A simple solution is the further you get away from God, the less healthy it probably is for you. And not to be over religious or over, as humans, where we were 200 years ago to where we are today is light years ahead of any other time in humans' lifespan. Mm-hmm. We were hunter-gatherers. So I've toyed with fasting. Had remarkable results with my gut health, with skin and complexion, and it took, now I'm a addictive personality, so when I did it, I've never done 7 days, I did 3 days, and felt phenomenal.
You still do water, or was it just a food fast?
No, I try to get 128 ounces of water a day. Can be a struggle. I recently had a doctor friend who's very healthy, very fit, who does way more than that. And I was like, ooh, really? And he said, yeah, I think you should look into that. Now, I'm going to talk about, I just now entered into something that may be controversial that people look at, but I'm exploring hormone therapy. So I had my testosterone taken, and it was in the tank. It was in the mid-low 200s.
Oh, geez. Yep. And for your age, I guess, is there an average for your age that they give you a number?
There is. Doctors normally won't treat you until you're like in the 170s or so.
Which is crazy.
But I randomly called companies from around different states and who are I don't know how I want to describe it, but they're doctors, but who do holistic also.
Sure.
So they're a MD or a DO, but they also do some holistic things, and they said you are in the tank. So my doctor and I had been chasing high cholesterol, fatty liver, and some kidney function and part of that kidney function could be disguised as, because I'm training so often and tearing down muscle, that it may not be a kidney issue. It may just be the creatine and stuff in my body from tearing down the muscle could be causing that number. But those 3 things, I recently am doing some peptides and doing some hormone therapy, and we're seeing slight movement in those 3 things that I was diagnosed prescriptions for. And I'm not telling anybody you shouldn't take your prescription. But someone who's been through what I've been through, there was a part of me saying, you've got to figure out the root cause of this. The medical field is there to support you and save you. I don't know that it's there to fix it.
Well, and I would agree. I mean, there's so many people that are in the hospital for a medical problem, and a lot of their problem could be fixed if they just led a healthier lifestyle.
Correct.
And it's kind of crazy. Like when all the COVID stuff was going on, they were like, the obvious thing is be healthy, and that will help deter any kind of disease, let alone, a disease that could kill you at any moment. It's like exercise, eat healthy, your lifestyle can dictate a lot of these things. I think that's a good testament to it as well.
Yeah, and on the COVID vaccine, I was when that first came out, I was undecided. I'm someone who I've only had a flu shot once, not because I don't believe in it, mainly because I was so busy. I just never, down in Lamona, I'd have to schedule to either run up to the clinic or run up to the hospital. I just never did it. I was so busy. So when COVID came, I was, do I want to take this or not? Because I'm kind of a free thinker with that. And my doctor answered that for me very quickly. I had 25 lymph nodes removed. I don't react well at times to certain medications, and they said, absolutely not. You can't. We don't know enough about this, and we don't know how you will respond with the lymph nodes and the damage and the things that your body went through and the chemo. Mm-hmm. We can't. She initially said, I can't recommend it, and then she said, no, you're not getting it. If you ever need a medical response comment, I'll write it.
Sure.
And I haven't said that loudly to anybody. I'm not a big anti. Now internally, I am. I'm an entrepreneur. I mean, I was in the industry where we take things to market. That vaccine doesn't go to market unless there's an insurance code that is there to pay. So it could be a fantastic product. It could be a fantastic medical device. It could be a new heart. But if the insurance company does not put a code for that to be paid, I don't care how good it is, it's not getting in the market. So it can also be bad.
Yep.
And if it has a code, sure, you can sell it. So nothing against entrepreneurs. I'm all for that capital, to capitalism and making money and the entrepreneurship. But there's a lot of things we do rather than just be healthy. And it's not easy. You walk into any grocery store, there's a lot of stuff in there that's not healthy. And even I have a quick story. I had a friend from India that owns a trucking company that I met at the gym. And in his heavy dialect, he said, where do you think that if you're eating fruits or vegetables and it's not in season, where do you think it's coming from? And he says, it's probably coming from South America. And he said, I haul those. And when we come into the U.S., they get sprayed. He said, I at times am driving through a location where it's either already been sprayed or it's being sprayed, so it will last and it'll get to the shelf. And he said, and he named specific things he wouldn't eat. And my eyes are about this big, and he said, yeah, I will not eat that. And it's things you and I would go to and grab right off the shelf, but we're not washing it well. We're not, so I don't want to sound like a conspiracy guy. It's just unfortunate that society does not have the ability to easily go grab food that is fully healthy for you.
Sure. Well, and you just see the trend of, like you said, the last 20, 30 years, the obesity rates of climbing, but also people's lifestyles are different. Now there's a lot more sedentary jobs. People don't recreate or move for fun. It's just like There's a lot of that going on as well. But to your point as earlier, I think the medical industry is definitely just take a pill because it's a profit center. It's the okay checkbox, this patient's taken care of, compared to the deeper issue, which I feel like is your overall health. Like what types of foods are you getting? Where's it coming from? All the deeper stuff. In kind of this journey with your own health, what have been some things that you've been implementing that you kind of sing praises to anyone that's wanting to try to be healthier? What are some of those things that you have experimented with that you encourage others to try?
One of the things, and I guess I want to preface, I 100% believe in the medical field. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. So I think anyone should take the medication, but also do the things to get you back to that point of that solid base of where you're at. I'm someone at times who chooses not to take the medication because attempt to get to the discipline to correct, whether it's cholesterol or what that might be. But, some things that are in my daily life now is the water. I attempt, and it's kind of comes and goes, but our life is surrounded by plastics. And I saw something the other day, whether it's true or not, but 5% of the weight of our brain is plastic by consumption. Now, that could be wrong. It's something that I read. It may not even be true. But it is something that I could believe because I'm sitting there with a bottle of water and it's in a plastic container. We have reverse osmosis at home, and we drink. I typically try to leave the house with 128 ounces of water. I'm not always good at it, but I try to do that.
And is that probably a shaker bottle worth or even more? I'm just trying to visualize.
No, it's a shaker bottle, maybe 24 ounces.
Oh, geez. Okay. That's much bigger.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I leave with a jug. I used to have one, but it was in a plastic container, and it said 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock. And so you kind of knew. And when I first got that, it was pretty easy because I would just watch that and say, oh, gosh, it's 11 and I'm still at 9 o'clock. And I'd drink a bunch. Now, you're not supposed to drink it super fast, but I'd rather drink it super fast and get to where I need to be. So the water is key. I remember there were years where I drank a Diet Coke and a muffin from Casey's, and I never drank water pre-cancer. So I probably got what I ate. I mean, I don't want to say I deserved it, but so the water, we do the sauna at least 4 times, up to 6 times a week, half hour, 179 degrees. Look at the studies. Whether you believe them or not, I do. It helps. I try to do the grounding. I think there's value in that. As kids, and you think of as an adult, when was the last time your feet touched the earth? We don't live on this planet, and it's, I just think it's try it. And I embrace it. Am I really good at it? Not always, but you can find me a lot of mornings, even in the winter, walking out, put my shorts on, and I do the ice bath every morning. I didn't go spend $5,000 to $10,000 on an ice bath. I went to Lowe's. I bought a $600 new freezer. I put a pool liner inside of it, and I bought a $35 Inkbird thermostat off Amazon that plugs into the wall. Your freezer plugs into Inkbird, and you set the high and the low. And I set the high at 49 and the low at 48. And I get in it for 3. I used to do 5 minutes. I took about a 3-week break. And after doing it for well over a year, I still haven't. I do 3 minutes is the time they say you need to do it. So
does that help with inflammation, but also just waking up? Like those, what are some of the benefits of those?
There's a dopamine. There's a rise in dopamine. There's a Wim Hof, a gentleman by the name, I think it's WIMHOF, two names. Wim Hof breathing technique that I do when I'm in the cold plunge. So you do 30 deep breaths in, a little bit out, deep breath in, and you do that 30 times. Exhale, hold it as long as you can. Inhale, hold it as long as you can, and then do 30 more. I used to do that 3 times when I was doing the 5 minutes. Now I do it 2 times when I'm doing the 3 minutes. It's a breathing technique. It fills your body and your mind and your brain full of oxygen in the morning. So I do the water. We do the sauna. I do the cold plunge in the morning. I do the heavy breathing, and then I've gone quite a bit meat based,
carnivore diet type.
Yeah, and not that I'm. For me, being celiac, it just works. I can't do a lot of carbs. I don't do well on sugars. So I made a bunch of pulled pork. I don't eat a lot of pork, but I made a bunch of pulled pork. We did yesterday. I buy some wild boar and mix that with beef. It's deer hunting season. My son and I and family will be harvesting some deer off our farm. So we'll use some of our own deer. We'll be harvesting turkey. off of that. When we do build out there, we'll be raising our own chickens and how do you get the grass-fed beef, no hormones, no chemicals, same things with chickens and the eggs. And again, I've said on here, the further you get away from God, the less healthy it probably is for you. Take that with a grain of salt, but I think that's true.
Yeah, and another thing I've heard people say is stick to the perimeter of the grocery store, because the further you get to the middle, the more processed it is. Things that are in a box or in a can. That's a big thing. Like I know my father-in-law was really sensitive to sodium for a long time. He had AFib and some other heart issues, and his doctor was saying you need to cut your sodium. And whenever I make a meal, I never look at sodium. And then when you start doing it for someone sodium conscious, you're like, holy cow! Like can-bought pasta sauce, it's like 700 milligrams of sodium. I'm like, okay, and that's just for one serving, and that's not even the whole jar. You just look at some of these crazy.
So we
things.
have apps. I mean, we use an app that rates some food. Now I don't always do it because I'm a creature of habit, so I don't veer too far. I mean, you look in the refrigerator and I've got wild boar and beef, and I chop up onions in that to give, it gives it a kind of a sweet taste. And I do today I'm doing the pulled pork, and we eat a lot of sweet potatoes. And it's peeling the sweet potato and it's cubing it, and we put it out on a large cookie sheet. We put olive oil or avocado oil on it, and we sprinkle the top with a seasoning. 35 minutes at 425, and they come out like candy. So we eat a lot of sweet potatoes. I'm a lot of meat based, and then various fruits and vegetables, as I can and do. But I eat a lot of. I just think if people would get away from what the processed things are, and that's kind of a buzzword, but if you really would say, okay, I'm just not going to eat that. The palm oils and the canola oil and the safflower and the sunflower oils, it's bad. We shouldn't be eating it. You shouldn't be digesting it, but we are. And it's what is allowed in the United States is not allowed in other countries. And someone listening may say, "Oh, this guy's just a rambling Republican." No, I'm not. I've had a really hard time staying alive, and it happens that Robert F. Kennedy this is his thing. He's like, "What are we doing?" And so I would listen to something he would say, and then I would go look, and I say, "You know what? He's right. Look at the chemicals in Fruit Loops." But in Europe, they have 3 ingredients. Why don't we have 3 ingredients? And I'd like to call out, and I won't, but I'd like to say the name of the store. Why are you allowing this? Mm-hmm. I mean, and look at the people who shouldn't be eating it, the people who don't have the funds and the wherewithal. Give them options. They're on a budget. The only thing they can buy is that inexpensive cereal to feed themselves and their kids. It should be society's goal and role to provide other options that are not expensive. I mean, don't blame it on them. I mean, walk in the stores loaded with marketing and things that aren't necessarily healthy.
Sure. Well, and even when I was in Europe, I went for study abroad for my class was open air markets. So we went to food markets, and it was the best trip ever. I ate all the you guys get some of the freshest seafood, some of the freshest meat or dates or whatever from all over the place. We were in London, Paris, Amsterdam. We were there for 15 days, and I never saw one overweight local.
Really?
It was just tourists like us from America. And then you see it's like all of them are very slender because they walk everywhere. They buy all their food fresh from food vendors on the street that made it, killed it, caught it, made it themselves.
Yep.
And the lifestyle is just different there. They're just you can't go to a large box store and buy processed food. The only way you get it is I need bread, and I go to the artisan down the street that made it in their kiln 2 blocks away.
Right.
Or pick the tomatoes right out of the garden down the street. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like it's it's a farm to table type, but that's the whole culture there, which is super interesting. So then you see it play out. It's like there is definitely some truth there there's a bigger thing, which probably has something to do with capitalism. You know, it's cheaper, easier, faster to make the preservatives so they stay on the shelf. I get that, but it's also how do we get healthier food in us? I think it's a big problem.
Because it's those who, for whatever reason, either aren't doing it, aren't capable, can't afford it. Those who shouldn't be eating it are, because they don't feel they have an option. Or maybe they don't even know they have an option. Maybe they don't even know that it's bad for them. But I think as a society, they should have options. I have a doctor, holistic doctor, but does a lot of holistic things, and he happens to be a lifter, and he's just a giant. He told me last week that it's been a year or two ago. He and his wife were over in Europe somewhere, and he said he ate like nobody's business. Pizza and pasta and wine, and they were over there for 9 days, and he said he lost 8 pounds. And mind you, here, he eats a real restrictive diet. And he said, I went over there and said, I don't even care. We're on vacation. I'm going to have fun. And he said, man, I felt good, and I didn't feel bloated. And he said, normally when I eat a lot of carbs, and he said, we went everywhere my wife wanted to go. And he said, normally I'm the fuddy-duddy and I don't eat with her. And he did. And he said, before we left, I got on a scale, and he said, I had lost 8 pounds in 9 days. And he said, I drank wine every night. I had pizza almost every day. I had pasta every day. And we had any dessert they had, I ate it. Mm-hmm. And he said, and he didn't have the answer, but he said, tell me the difference between that. Because he said, if I went out for pizza here every night and ice cream every night, I wouldn't lose 8 pounds.
He would have gained 8 pounds probably. Yeah.
So I'm not a conspiracy guy. There's something, and I don't have the answers. I'm not an expert on the food stuff. It's trial and error for me. The little intricate little things I do with the cold plunging and the sauna, and it's something it's kind of taken hold. It's valuable for me. I didn't want to do it this morning, and I walked into the kitchen and I thought, okay, this will ruin my entire day. I started thinking, okay, I got to go meet Ryan and do a podcast. I thought, I need to be in my routine. It's 3 minutes out of my day. Do I like doing it? No. Some days I do, when I'm sore and I get in it. But for when I did it that year, there were times it was really easy. I just sat in. I was like, man, I love this.
Sure.
I've been in 3 weeks now every day, and I haven't. Today was the first day that once I got in, I was like, okay, I can do this. Not bad. But it used to be I enjoyed it every now and then, but yeah, it's something you got to get kind of used to and embrace.
Well, and as you're improving your health and trying to do these things, what have been the big payoffs for you, or the reason that it's worth taking the time to read labels and do your routine, your protocol, all the things? What have been the payoffs for you with your health?
I think a lot of that is the anxiety and the gut health, and just that. I said earlier on in this podcast that guys are so ingrained to say, I got this, and that really doesn't matter, or that. Think of the smallest, little pill that you take. Well, then how much do you think that large pizza that you're inhaling impacts on your health? And I'm someone who don't want to limit, because when I find something that I like to eat, I want to eat a bunch of it, and sometimes I do. I have friends that I shouldn't say a friend. I have a friend who has a friend who's a power lifter, and eats one meal a day, and he's a mountain of a man. It works for him. Probably not going to work for everybody. I've started. I love coffee. We have an espresso at home, and I drink mushroom coffee, but I order this white mocha flavoring because I can't drink black coffee. I can, but I don't like. Who wants to drink black coffee? So I had to stop doing that for whatever that. It's mushroom coffee that tastes just like coffee, which I hear is really. I read it's rise. It's really good for you, and then I put a little bit of some lactose creamer milk in it. But I just over and over and over wasn't feeling well, and so I had put on some pounds. I went on the hormone therapy and started feeling better. Normal walking around weight's 196. I went right back to that when I got off chemo. I went from 150, 160 right back up to 196. I was up to 205 and just thought, okay, I gotta, if you look, I've got some got the family neck fat. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to I do really well when I fast. And so I'm not doing anything crazy, but I'm not eating until noon. Drinking my water, take my vitamins and stuff at noon once I eat. But those little things work for me. Trying to pull back in, but I love eating. I just got to find the things that are healthy for me, and then I'll today I probably ate a pound of pulled pork. Now, should I have? Probably not. But I didn't have cereal, didn't have oatmeal, didn't have, for breakfast, and didn't whatever, spike your cortisol. And, so kind of trial and error.
Sure. Well, I think it's great sharing all the different insights because there's things that people can take away. I think I always say just pick one thing and try it because I think a lot of people hear the biohacking, they hear the laundry list of things that people do for their morning routines and they get intimidated or scared. It's like, try one thing, if it's sauna, figure that out. Or if your gym has a sauna, use it once or twice a week. See if it makes you feel any better. I think that type of stuff helps a lot. And then just kind of learning what your body likes and doesn't like. Because I know, like in my family, my wife's family always does a Pizza Friday. That's their thing. And there's weeks where I don't eat it because I'm like, I get a pizza hangover. Because to your point, it's like that's the food that I can't have 2 slices like school when they cut you off. Like I'll eat 4, 5, 6, 7 slices of pizza because it's just right there and you just can't stop. It's like cocaine to me. I'm like, I just like, you get a little taste. I'm like, nope, can't do it. So sometimes you just have to regulate what food you cut out, or you just need to cut out completely and just say, hey, I'm cold turkey and pizza for a while or whatever. But kind of tying it all together here. I know we've kind of covered a big range of stuff here, so I appreciate you coming in. You talked about some of these turning points in your life and things that made you really lean into your faith or really think about your purpose and things like that. As you've kind of expanded on your life mission and the things you're wanting to do, what do you know? What is your purpose? Have you thought that far to think what your purpose is on this earth?
I think it's a journey. A couple things. One is, I think, telling my story and not being afraid to share that. I think I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way. Listen to, if you were to write down, what makes you happy? Where do you, and to put everything else out, just sit down and say, what makes me happy? I've done that several times, and it always revolves around family and kids. What do you want to do? And then I look at what I'm doing. They don't match. How do you realign that? I just think, and I've said this several times on here, you can't keep saying, I've got this. I've got this. It's do the work. Answering, what is my purpose? I don't know that. But that, and I have the children's Bible, and I wrote, that's in a cancer story. If you go out and Google my name, Kirk Bjorland cancer story, a lot of the things that I've said today are in that story. When I got cancer and when I don't know if I want to say beat cancer. I'd like to say I beat cancer, but I don't know if you ever 100% beat it, but, I beat it for the time. One of my friends who I had met, there was a calendar
they put out, and if you write your story and then you see about getting put on the calendar. So she encouraged me to write my story. So it's in it. A lot of the things that I've said today are in that, but probably to tie this all together, it's, how do you stop embracing I got this, do the work, what makes you happy? If you could do anything, what would make you happy? Me, be around my kids and work out. And then give back in some manner. Part of my reason for being at Granger is to give back. Now, I don't want to say that I could go do anything else. Any of us could. But there are other things that I could go do. I mean, go back and do my real estate business and devote that time and probably make a significant amount of more money. But it doesn't give me that pleasure of, that how do you give back and how do you provide back? My goal of being here and helping Granger is to set them up for future growth so that when that growth happens, and I think you can look all over the west side of the metro. I don't know that Granger will grow like the Waukees and the Urbandales and, the Grimes, but it's going to be a percentage of that. My goal was to put Granger in a place that growth can happen and limit the mistakes, and I think we're getting there. We got a good team and that's happening. But for me personally, to wrap that together, life's a struggle. And I think you have to put the time in to what do I think my purpose is, and then spend time. There was a study out that talked about if you were to pray or meditate for 10 minutes a day for 90 days, how it can change your mind or change your focus. I believe in those things. Now, am I good at it? No, I'm not. I mean, I think I'm here to share, boy, don't do what I did. Don't follow my path, but, there is a path to follow, and there's a part of me, there's a big part of me that wants to share that story, which for you and I will probably lead us forward to some kind of relationship where I'm doing a podcast and bringing in people to, like you've interviewed me and have those conversations of, who are on the edge of that cusp to challenge your thinking, both, health-wise and spiritually. And there's a big world out there, and I think at times we're heading in a wrong direction. And I'd like to be able to, to shine a light that, hey, it is possible. There are things that you can do, to be healthy, to be happy. I don't know. My philosophy is that I don't know that you ever arrive at the destination. I do believe in my life there is a destination, and I hope to be there one day. But this journey I've done a lot of things wrong, and don't mind sharing my story on what those are.
Sure. Well, I appreciate the advice and the storytelling. So I think your life journey is a very interesting one. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing all about it. If there's anywhere that you want to send people that are listening that want to learn more about you or Granger or your businesses or whatever, feel free to share that now. Whatever you want to share.
Yeah, not a huge plug. If there are any people listening to this that want to know more about Granger, glad to stop in at Granger off of Main Street here in Granger, Iowa, and contact us. Easy to find. No need to give a plug for my real estate business or anything. We're doing a good job at that and getting information out. If anyone needed information, they know my name and can find that. I will say that I do look forward. I've created a logo and kind of concepts to get something like this podcast going. I'd like to, I keep talking about step out of the boat and, tell others God save you. I think I do have a story to tell, and I think I can need to take that step and share that.
Sure. Well, if by the time this episode comes out, if your podcast does exist, we will definitely link it in the description.
We will.
So we can.
It probably will be.
Sure. Well, these won't start coming out till January of 25. So you got a couple months to figure out what you're doing with it. So If you made it this far, make sure to go check out Kirk. We'll link all his stuff up in the description box. Also, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're watching on YouTube or on Spotify. And give us a 5-star review. We always appreciate those. You can also check us out on social media and follow for more clips from different episodes. We're up over, I think, 55 interviews so far, and with another 8 more this week. So hoping to give you guys a ton of great stories and help you guys out in your journey. So you're listening to the Rhymes with Odd podcast. My name is Ryan Snod. It Rhymes with Odd, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Peace. Thank you so much for watching yet another episode of the Rhymes with Odd podcast. We really do appreciate your support. If you could give us a 5-star review on Apple iTunes, that makes a world of difference, guys. Also, if you're tuning in on YouTube or Spotify, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss another episode, and check us out on social media. Also, if you'd like to inquire more about our services here at Snod Media Group or learn about doing your own podcast for your own business, you can find us at snodmedia.com. We'll see you in the next episode. Peace.